Welcome to our fourth team meeting. At our last session, we examined ways of creating the entire infrastructure required for continuous improvement. This session, we're going to look at the importance of management's full participation and why it's the place where the greatest roadblocks typically exist. See, it's not just a strategic change we're after for management. It's asking for a major behavioral shift from those people who have had the most to gain from the way things have been. And it means letting go of past ideas about managing people and instead creating a management organization which actually has a true service function. So Jim, it seems like we've got top management and we've got the plan. The instinct now is to get people doing things right away.
Bill, you're jumping right off the boat again, and that's what is happening continuously. Our top management team is focusing on, let's get down to the employee. Let's get them doing something. They feel that they're the trouble. And you've got to change that thought pattern. The employee is not the trouble. They can be part of the solution, but they are not the trouble. You've got to start with management first. You've got to get them setting the example. Your employees listen to your mouth and see what you say, but they watch your feet. And if you're not setting the example, they're not going to follow. And that's what we have to do now. We have to focus on the management team. You know, the management team, they're the one that allocate the resources. They establish the organization structure. You know, they select the leaders. They set the priorities. They set the performance standards. They make the job assignments. They establish the operating procedures. They establish some rewards and measurement systems. They set the priorities. They select and train the employees. You know, they are the ones that cause the problems. They are responsible for 85% of the problems, and only they can solve them. So why are you anxious to get down to working with the employees that can only solve a small percentage of the total problem? We have to work with management first and get them totally involved, totally participating, setting the example and setting the leadership style.
Well, this is management participation then, and we've heard about that for years, but it never seemed to take full.
Management's thought pattern is wrong. It's been wrong. What is the questions that management asks? The first question they ask when you come to talk to them is, how much? How much is it going to cost you, right? Secondly is, how many do I have to buy? And third, how good does it have to be? We've got to change that thought pattern around. Turn it all the way around so they're really talking quality first. Now, when you start talking participation, that's what we really want to do, is to involve people and get them more participative. When you start thinking about participation, and look at how different areas view participation. The employees, they're all for it. They want to have more responsibility. They want to be more involved. They want to have more to say about what's going on in your job. So they're all for it. When you look at it from a business standpoint, we have record after record, case study after case study that says it's great for the business. It's the right thing from the business standpoint for us to do participation, to involve the employees. You look at organized labor, our unions. You know, the union leaders that run on a quality of work life ticket have won almost without exception. So the union leaders are strongly behind participation. Where has it failed? Where are the real roadblocks in getting participation working? It's in the management team. They are the roadblocks. There's no one else is the roadblocks. Now, what you actually do is management can really fall into three very separate categories. It's almost like a stairway where they start at the very bottom. They're at the awareness and delegation level. And that's where most managers start. They move up to the next level and they become involved in it. And at last they reach the top level, the door to where they can open the door to opportunity. And here they're participating. They're actively participating. Now, You can really tell where a manager is just by talking with him and see how he comes out. I'll go into a CEO's office and I'll sit down and he'll say, Jim, what do you want? And I'll say, I'd like to know what you're doing as far as improving quality and productivity. And he reaches over here and pushes a button. He says, Mary, get that quality guy, you know his name, and have him come over and take Dr. Harrington and show him what we're doing as far as improving quality. Now there's a CEO, that he's aware of his system, but he's delegated that to somebody else. He does not own it. I go into another CEO's office. He reaches down, and I ask the same question. He reaches down for the phone and pushes the phone, and he says, Joan, get Tom Jenkins and have Tom Jenkins come over here and join Dr. Harrington and myself, and we want to talk about quality and productivity improvements in my company. Now here's a man, he is participating in it, he's involved in it, but he really doesn't feel comfortable. He really feels that he needs somebody else to lead the activities. Then I'll go into a CEO, the one I've really been looking for, and I'll ask him the same question. What is he says? Let me tell you what we're doing. It's exciting what's going on in here. It's exciting what's happening. And that's the type of CEO that we've got to bring them all up to. And when they get up at that level, that's when you really have progress. That's when you can open the door to opportunity and things start to change within your company. Not only do you got to get the CEO so he feels that way, you've got to get everyone so that they feel that way. You've got to have every manager feeling exactly that way about this whole quality process, that they own it, that it's theirs, that they're part of them. And that's what we've got to do. That's where we've got to start to bring out that ownership. Now, there's many ways to manage. There's a lot of managers that still manage this way, and that makes things happen. It makes things work. You can threaten and you can fire and you can push people around about so long, and they're going to come back and they're going to go on strike. They're going to undermine you. They're going to find a way to get even. We don't want that. We've got to build trust. You can rely on self-motivation. Say, I can let them alone and they'll find something that they want to do, and that doesn't work neither. The thing that really works, the thing that we find consistently works, is when you get into a participative environment where you actually involve the employee in the decisions that are related to them. Studies have proven that when you're using a participative system, you will have better performance in your company. 14 out of the 15 key measurements as far as performance are better if you have a participative system. And we've proven that in a number of studies that we've done. Now, what I'd like to do is take you over here and show you something.
Okay.
You see, the attitude that most managers have is right here. One way, my way, no other way. And what that does, it leads you down a curvy road, and eventually you end up in a dead end. And that's what we've got to do. There's more than one way. You've got to be open to ideas. Now, when you start thinking about participation, the bottleneck again is our middle and first line managers. And that has been verified in a recent survey. The survey was conducted where 5,000 first line and middle managers were asked some very critical questions. Question number one, do you think participative management is good for the company? 72% said it's good for the company. It's the right thing. This is great for the company. They asked the next question. They said, do you think it's good for the employee? 60% said the employees are going to love it. It's great for them. They're going to benefit from them. Then they asked the critical question, the really critical question. They said, do you think it's good for you? And their answer was, no way. It's bad for me. I'm going to get the shaft. But, these are the people that you want to implement participative management. And, they're not ignorant people. They're smart people. They've been around for a long time. The average middle manager is 42 years old. He's a college graduate. She's been working with the people for years. She's a success, and he's a success in any way you want to measure him. He earns good money. He's respected by the community. He's a success. Why should he take a risk on going in a new way? He's been successful. And so that's the problem you have. Middle management has a problem in accepting the need to change. Now, they're smart. They're not going to tell their boss, no way, I'm not going to do it. Their boss has said, I'm interested in it. What are they going to say? They're going to look up at it and they say, don't worry, we'll take care of it. Just let us take care of it. You go and do your thing. we'll take care of the participative management. And what do? They go back, they sit down in their chairs, and they say, I'm just going to wait the old man out. It's going to be another one of those things like, oh, management by objectives. It'll just float by, you know. We can just wait it out.
A lot of organizations, Jim, it's called a sheep dip. You know, you dip the sheep, pull them out, and it'll pass.
Absolutely.
And they're back right into the same system that you had before, and there's really no change.
And that's the attitude that we're getting out of middle management. And what happens if they get forced into doing something and they say, okay, well, we'll have some teams down here doing something. What they do is they let the teams start and get going, and they walk down, they say, huh, you're in another one of those team meetings, huh? And immediately the employees get the word and says, that's not really what management wants us to do, and it's dropped. And you know, that's what's killed so many quality circle activities in the United States. Now, the quality of circles is down at the employee level, and that's great. But Japan, when they implemented quality circles, they spent a great deal of time to prepare top management and middle management before they started down with the quality circles.
Many times it's almost like you're taking someone out of being productive if you stick them in a team.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you'll see, there's some real good reasons why management fears to do that. You know, from a manager's standpoint, this is something new. And they look at it and they say, well, if I give up some of my authority, what's happening? I've lost some job security. They see companies in Japan that the first line manager manages 50 people.
It's called flattening the organization, right?
Right. Absolutely. As you empower the employees, they're worried what's going to happen to the jobs. They're worried about loss of authority. They're worried about increased workload. They say, I've got to go to a team meeting. The employees are going to come up with all these ideas of things that should be done, and that's more workload for me. I've got to go out and investigate this. It's more workload. I'm already too busy. They're worried about loss of responsibility and measurement. How are you going to measure me now? Are you going to measure me based upon what the team does? You're going to measure me based upon what I do? What they're afraid is you're going to give the team credit when everything goes right, and they're going to get all the blame when things go wrong. And that's been the way we've worked, isn't it? And they're worried about that. They're worried about the erosion of that one-on-one relationship with their employees. They're worried about this. We're now in the team area where I don't have that close one-on-one. They're worried about loss of power.
Well, not only that, too, Jim, but it takes a whole new set of skills. It's no longer setting, planning, directing, steering, controlling. It's facilitating. It's leading now.
And that's the point. They're down and they're worried about failure. Can they do that? Can I take these new skills? Or am I going to fail? And what you need to do before you start implementing participation down at the employee level, you've got to answer all these concerns. And that what they are is concerns. They're not problems. The problem is that we haven't taken the time to alleviate the concerns that our management team has related to the whole area of participation. We want to just plow right on through like you were suggesting. Let's get down to the employees. You've got to prepare the management team first. You've got to have them setting the example. We've got to train our managers how to exist in this new environment. We've got to provide new job descriptions and new measurements for our managers. Very seldom has anybody backed up and said, I want the manager to change. How is that job description going to change, and how am I going to measure him? And those things have to be completed first and communicated very well. You've got to talk about modifying the reward and penalty system, because you've got to provide praise to that manager when the team does well. And you can't penalize them when things go wrong. If they were a team decision, they look good at that time. So you've got to look at those things. You've got to modify that whole activity. You've certainly got to bring in, at this very early stage, the organized labor activities. They've got to be part of the total training for the management team. But you've got to have that training take place at the management level and bring in the union leaders. So we're all coming along. The leadership role is all changing, and we have a common base understanding before we start working with the employees and involving them in the employees in the activity. And when we do that, and we get management setting the example, the role model, then you're going to see change take place that's very meaningful and long-lasting. You won't have these spurts of energy and have them die off. And that's what we're doing. We have spurts of energies that die off, and we're back at a level that's lower than we were before. Why do I say lower? Because our employees think we really don't mean it. They say, you know, another one of these fads coming along. And so the next time when you want them to come with you, they're not going to follow.
Thus you run into all these possible dead ends, yield stops, road closed, if you don't take the right step and get management fully involved, fully trained, and fully participating.
To continue to relate to employees the way we have in the past will continue to produce that level of performance. And that there must be a change in that fundamental relationship and the practices that maintain that relationship. Employees and managers need to be more engaged in meaningful, gutsy stuff. That's why they're being turned off. We've used the phrase intrapreneurial as a way to describe, in a sense, the need to get some spirit back into. And by using that term, we're basically saying, this is your enterprise. Look at it, relate to it as if you owned it. Well, what does an owner of a business do? He gets involved in a lot of the business, at least understands a lot of it, and monitors a lot of the enterprise, and gets satisfaction out of knowing that things are going well, or becomes aware of things that aren't going well and does something about it.
Be sure that you are committed to doing it, because it takes a tremendous amount of organizational time and resources. Be prepared for the cynics, and be sure you have a strategy to deal with the cynics that may exist. And be prepared for, I think, a long-term investment. And it goes back to something we were talking about earlier in terms of our rethinking of our strategy. I think how you conceptualize this question and how you approach it is very, very important. And then how you communicate it. Because if you do communicate it as a program, as distinct from a way of doing business, then you're not going to achieve the optimal outcomes that you're looking for.
The major problem that you have in putting together a total quality program probably lies with the management. It's not so much with the wage force. The wage force is the least of your problem. Management is the greater problem, because it's the total quality problem, total quality program, statistical process control, all of those things are viewed as a threat. If you get to the point where you're 80 or 90% operator controlled in your processes, your managers on the line are standing around saying, well, what's going to happen to me? If people are going to be operating the process and we no longer have to watch and check what they do, what will we be doing? We've tried to address that by refocusing their efforts. You know, their job as managers is to provide the people working under them with whatever they need to be more productive and more efficient. Their job is not to just watch and check what everybody does. Their job is to make that process more efficient, help the people to be more productive through providing them tools, whatever they need. That's the most difficult facet of the overall total quality process. Just getting your management to buy into the program, to the process, and that requires a tremendous amount of effort.
My advice for other presidents in the industry, if they are seriously thinking about improving their quality, is to get personally involved. You have to understand the quality issue and manufacturing issue. And so in the decision-making process, you can allocate adequate resources, you can support the quality function, and so implement the quality program. So most important thing is don't delegate to the middle management. It won't work. Personally, you've got to commit yourself to understand what statistical process control is, what the design of experiment is. So when the time that the quality function is requesting for resources, you have the right judgment, can make the right decision to invest those areas for improvement. So get personally involved.
The way I've provided leadership in the quality process is that at the very start, when we were just looking at quality improvement, I wanted all of the vice presidents to clearly understand what quality improvement was all about. I wanted to clearly understand what quality improvement is all about. Certainly, I'm not in a position to lead unless I really understand the concept very well. That's why I read a lot of books and went to seminars. But after I was convinced that this was important, you must realize that we have a team management philosophy here. The team has to decide what happens at Accurate, and basically that's the vice presidents of the company. So it was important that the vice presidents clearly understand what they were saying yes or no to. Therefore, the way I gave them leadership was to allow them to go to different seminars and spend time discussing the different readings. So we went to a number of seminars where we heard some of the experts discuss quality, plus we did different types of reading. And what I really wanted was for them to be as excited about quality as I am. And I could feel it growing, and I could feel that they were more interested all the time. And they saw the value in the business concepts just the way I did. But I must tell you that it was important that they decide that this is right for Accurate, because it's the vice presidents and the managers under them that have to carry out the quality process. The president doesn't do it alone. Therefore, it was important that they buy in and truly believe it was right for Accurate. And in fact, if they had said, look, Steve, this is not right. We have other problems we have to take care of. This is a nice idea, but it is the wrong time for Accurate. I would have backed off, and I would have said, okay, maybe we'll do this later. But the executives agreed that not only was it critical to Accurate to do this, but that the timing was correct as well. So we could really move ahead with confidence.
The single most piece of advice I would tell anyone, and I do get calls, just this week I've had calls say, we'd like you to help us to get a Q1. And the first question I will ask them, what does your top management think about this? And if their answer is, well, he doesn't know about it, I would suggest that they better drop everything and figure some way to get him involved. Because unless you get his commitment and his involvement, not just word, many companies will say the top management said they're behind me, but he doesn't even know what he's behind. And until you get him involved, totally committed, your program may be I'm a muzzleloader hunter. If you ever use a muzzleloader, you can put powder in the flash pan and don't put any powder and ball in the rifle. And when it goes off, you just get a flash and everyone sees it, looks great, but nothing happens out the end of the muzzle. So I look at it, unless you get their top quality, top commitment from the top management, you're just a flash in the pan, and you're not really going to happen very much out there in the muzzle.
When it's done right, it can be really a very exciting thing. It can be really exciting. When you start talking about participation, normally what we do is we see a company in the United States, upper management will say, hey, this whole thing about participation, I've read a lot of good articles about it, it's something that our company ought to do. You know, we ought to build teams in our company. We want to be known as a team company. So top management says, first line managers, supervisors, foremen, what I want you to do is to empower the employee, give up some of your authority, some of your responsibility to the employee, and make teams out of them so that they're working, solving problems. And what have you done? You've went right around middle management, and you've left middle management out. And that's the problem that we've faced for the last 10 years. We've left middle management out rather than bringing them along as part of the team. Now, how does it work if it's going to be successful? You've got to start with top management, right where you were. But the next thing you've got to do is top management says, I believe in participation. I am going to be the model, and I'm going to give up some of my authority, some of my responsibility to middle management. And I'm going to give you this additional empowerment that I used to control in my own grips. Now what happens? Middle management already working an average of 53 hours a week. They're already too busy. And here comes this additional workload down. Now, they're going to grab that workload, because I've never seen a manager that wouldn't gladly give up a lesser responsibility for something that they considered more. So what he'll do, he'll grab that and he'll say, well, I've got a lot more to do, so I'm going to push down to the first line manager some additional responsibilities, empower them to do more. First line manager has an additional workload. How does he take care of that? He takes care of that by setting up teams, empowering the employee. Where does the void occur in a successful process? The void always occurs at top management. And that's where it should. They should have additional time on their hands. What should they do with that time? It's called management by walking around. That president, that CEO, that vice president should be out on the floor meeting employees, meeting with the first line managers, spending their time so they become really aware of what the business is about, where the important issues are. If they got any additional time, where should they direct it? Right around on long-range planning. And that's where they really, almost 100% of their time ought to be spent between long-range planning, looking at the vision of where we're going, and looking down and working with the employees out there in the real world, not in the financial tower that they set in today.
Not just looking at the numbers and making decisions based on those.
You know, what they're trying to do is to drive the company with information that is incomplete, and what they need to do is to empower the people that have the information to make those decisions. Things will work faster, they'll work better, and they'll get done. What it is sort of like a waterfall effect. Starts at the top, and it has to start with the top, and then washes the bad habits away from each level of management all the way down. And eventually you get down to this level, and then you start working with the employees. And that's the real key. Now, when you start thinking about this, this is going to bring about a major change in attitude of management. It requires a major educational investment. And you really need to provide a different educational process in the improvement activities for top management, for middle management, and for line management. Top management, you want to teach them how to ask the right questions. Mm-hmm. Middle management are the coach for the new managers that come in. They need the most knowledge. They need to be the most involved, because they are the ones that are actually developing the new leaders. So they have to have the biggest information, the most information, and be best informed. And of course, the line managers, the supervisors, they're the ones that's going to be the implementers. They're going to be the teachers to the employees, and that's the way you want to go.
Your entire improvement effort can either be enhanced or crushed by the role played by the management team in relationship to the rest of the organization. It's critical to have a crisp understanding of that role and the effect that it has on the success of the entire improvement process. Your team task is to really address that issue.
What we would like to have you do is to take exercise number 4. It's entitled Understanding Improvement. And this exercise is designed to help you get a better understanding of how the management team fits into the whole improvement activities and what it's going to mean to your future.
The establishment of the management team and its role in the improvement process is really critical towards moving ahead in this entire process and getting things going. Understanding, as Dr. Harrington said, the major attitude change that has to take place really leads to a significant investment in education. Well, Jim, that leads us to management education.
When we talk about management education, it requires a very systematic plan. It starts first with awareness. You've got to provide them with a reason for them to be involved, for a reason for them to accept and make this part of their management style. Once you've got them aware of the problem, then you can start talking about the quality truths, the basic principles behind improvement. And those two items have to bring about an attitude change. And you've got to bring about the attitude change first before you start into anything further in the educational process. Once you've brought about an attitude change, then you can start going into the quality science of the tools, the techniques, the methods, because then they'll embrace them. The problem that we've had is we hurry into the tools without bringing about that attitude change first. And even when you completed that whole cycle and provide them with the tools, you are now 15% of the way. The big job, the 85% of the job, is the implementation. You know, education by itself is no good. It's absolutely useless. It's only if you use it. And if you don't use it within the first week of the time you get it, your chances have dropped to 80% that you will never use it. So it's very important that we bring very close the application, the information, and the usage of the whole job and the whole improvement training activities. And we find that most managers adapt. A very small percentage of the managers cannot exist in the participative environment. But less than 5% cannot adapt and change and be extremely successful in that new environment.
So you got a lot of change going on inside the organization, and that's all focused on the shift within management.
That's right. Now what we need to do, we've got the management trained, we've got them understanding what the quality activities are. Now what we'll do is we'll bring together management improvement teams that will work as a team together across functional lines to attack problems that are common to the management team. So that now that they feel comfortable, the implementation, I want them to feel comfortable with it before they start going out to the employees. We want to get the managers having very personal, one-on-one contact with all of their customers, so they've developed a thought pattern of their customer, whether it's an internal or an external customer. And last of all, what we want the managers to do is to remember that the employee is the one that knows the job best. Bill, who do you think knows the job second best? Is it quality assurance?
It's not quality assurance.
Absolutely right, but everybody thinks it's quality that's supposed to know the job second best. It's the manager that's there. He knows the job second best. So really what he needs to do is establish a very formal self-assessment procedure where quarterly he sets down and he uses a checklist to be sure that he is doing everything right and things are going on within the company right. And that's a very important concept. You see, if you think about what management's role is, management's role first is to set the standards for the employees. Secondly, as soon as he sets the standards, all the employees start measuring him to see if he's living up to them. And we don't think about that. We don't think. We're being measured all the time. Our employees are measuring us more than we're measuring them. And so we've got to really set the standards. We have to be the leader. And if we don't lead, if we don't set the standards and live up to the standards we set, you can't expect our employees to do that. It's that waterfall effect coming down again. And management's real job is to remove the roadblocks. Just clean out the roadblocks from the employees and things will go smoothly. That's our job.
So I've got a whole new responsibility for management, which is just to get all of the impediments out of the way so the teams can really move ahead.
Absolutely. And I would like to give a work assignment to the team out there. And we've talked about the need for change. And so work assignment number 4 is entitled Management's Job Description. In this new environment, we need a new job description for managers. And what I would like to have you do between now and this time next week is to develop a job description for a manager in a participative environment that meets the vision statement that you developed in the last session.